morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Camp, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. My guest today is a 7-year veteran wide receiver in the NFL after going undrafted out of Michigan State, spending time with the Denver Broncos, New York Giants, and New Orleans Saints. He's won Big Ten championships, the Rose Bowl, and Super Bowl 50 with the Broncos. He's a best-selling author, public speaker, and podcaster. He is Bennie Fowler. Bennie, welcome.
Mike, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. I'm very excited to have you on. So the first question right out of the gate is I just listed some of the accomplishments of your career. So Super Bowl winner, caught a 2-point conversion, right, from Peyton Manning in Super Bowl 50, Rose Bowl, all these other great accomplishments, played with some of the greatest to ever do it. Where does being a guest on the Morning Spotlight rank in those career accomplishments? It's got to be at least close to the top, if not at the top, right?
Right at the top.
Right at the top, obviously.
No brainer. It's right at the top. So
yeah,
yes.
Right. So if Peyton's listening, or the other Manning or Drew Brees or whatever, just know you're playing second fiddle to Mike Ham all the time. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about you. So I want to get to know you better. We had our initial call a while ago. We're finally getting a chance to record this. So my audience may know you. You're currently in the NFL. Just played with the Saints last year. Obviously, the Giants, which are right up the street from where I am right now. So you have a good career, the whole thing. So let's learn more about you. Kind of where do you come from? I know you're from Michigan, but talk about like your upbringing, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Have two great parents. They're not together, but I have two great parents. I have a stepmother. I am the oldest of four. So I have a brother, Chris, who is 28. Taylor is 20 years old and Madison is 18 and I am 29. So yeah, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, went to Detroit Country Day High School, really known for basketball. Basketball was my favorite sport growing up. It still might be. It's right there with football. So, I just wasn't good enough to go and play at the next level in terms of basketball, but it's a sport that I love, something that I grew up playing in Detroit. And I went to Michigan State University, as you mentioned before, where I got my degree in economics and played football up there and had some of the most unforgettable years of my life up there in East Lansing.
Awesome. So what got you into football? So you mentioned basketball was your number one love. So what was, what point did you realize, like, hey, I really like basketball, but football could be a path for me?
So I would say there's a couple different moments in my life, but one moment that really sticks out is that, I had a lot of friends that actually wanted me to come out and play football. And they had been asking me every summer, at least my first couple years in high school. And then going into my junior year, a friend by the name of Jonas Gray, who played with the New England Patriots and won a Super Bowl, and then Kenny Dimmons, they were our two best players in our high school. They're like, come out. And I mentioned it to my mom. Like, Mom, they want me to come out and play football. I don't want to do it. And she was like, no, you really should. You should go out there and play. And I was like, what? How many moms are out there encouraging their sons to go out and play a game where their son gets hit?
Right. Oh. I was ready for you to say like the opposite of what you just said. Like, no way, you're playing football. And then you had to like sneak and play, and she like kind of like Bobby Boucher and the Water Boy, something like that. My mama doesn't want me to play football. So, but yeah, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, she really encouraged me to go out there and play. And sometimes in life, you need that different perspective. She had the confidence already within me, and that gave me confidence within myself to own who I was and actually go use talents that I already naturally had on the football field. And that led to a scholarship. And sometimes in life, that's what we need. We need that other perspective because sometimes we're just so close, we can't even tell the forest from the trees. And my mom was able to give me a different perspective, and I was able to go out there and really take advantage of it.
Awesome. I think that's a great advice from your mom. For all the moms listening, go moms. My mom has given me some great advice over the course of my career. So big mom fan. So, all right. So you're at Michigan State, you're going through your career there. Obviously, I would imagine that at some point you have the desire to make it to the next level, make it to the NFL. And go from, and, kind of start that journey. Was that something that you were anticipating maybe getting drafted out of college, or was it something that you thought might be a long shot? What were your thoughts going into that?
coming into college, I wasn't even thinking about the NFL. I was always watching college highlights of great receivers like Deshaun Jackson and Ted Ginn, players that I've gotten a chance to see play throughout my career. So I just was thinking about college. And then as I got towards the later years in college and I saw some friends go to the NFL, I was like, oh man, this is like a real thing. Like I've played with these players. I know I can play with these players, and they have gone to the NFL and played. And that's when it started to become real, probably my junior and senior year, is that, the NFL, like this is something that I want to do. And I saw Le'Veon get drafted. He left early, Deion Sims, Kirk Cousins. These are players that I played with at Michigan State, and I saw them go and get drafted. So I thought I had a chance, especially after coming off a 13-1 record my senior year, where I was a leading receiver on the Rose Bowl and Big Ten championship team.
Yep.
Playing against the incredible players that I played against, but I didn't get drafted. And, that's kind of how life is. You put your work and you put all this work into something, and you don't get the result that you want in terms of getting drafted. But it led to me being able to actually pick the team I wanted to go to. And I had a lot of suitors coming out of the draft, and Detroit offered me the most money, but I decided to go to Denver because if I could play with Peyton Manning, I could play anywhere in the NFL. And that has been true for my career in terms of the quarterbacks that I've played with. I feel like, I'm able to separate myself because they're able to trust me and they know I'm going to be in the right spot. So yeah, I could have got drafted in the late rounds, but I'm glad I didn't, because then I wouldn't have been able to pick the team that I really wanted to go to.
Right. Okay. So I think I know we're going to get into mindset, because that's kind of like one of your things. And I think that's a good base layer, the good concrete building block that we just put down as we kind of progress through this story. So you mentioned that you were the number one wide receiver on a Rose Bowl championship team, right? Mm-hmm. Playing with Kirk Cousins, playing with all these other people on this team. So when you don't get drafted, is that like, what's that?
Kirk wasn't on that team. Connor.
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to putting the whole story together. But all right. So you don't get drafted. Is that like a gut punch moment for you, or is that just like, I know you mentioned it was, you saw it as an opportunity, but was there like what the hell? Like, am I not good enough to make it to the NFL? Like why me? Did that ever cross your mind?
Absolutely. It was, especially in that moment right then and there, because, you're getting calls when the 5th, 6th, and 7th round had came on. I was getting calls from teams like, hey, we're thinking about taking you in the next round. We're thinking about taking you this round. And you get super excited because of the possibility that's within, having your name called on TV and you got your family around and you're watching the draft with your family. But yeah, it was just like, why me? Am I not good enough? And did they not see my stats? Did I not perform well enough at the combine? Did they not see me perform well enough at my pro day? And, it just is what it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is what it is. Okay, so we'll get off that topic. Now we'll move into the NFL. So you're with the Broncos. That was 2014, correct?
Yep.
And then so you start your career as an undrafted wide receiver in the NFL with the Broncos. Obviously, Peyton Manning's there. They had a lot of talent, a bunch of different wide receivers and all that kind of stuff. So you obviously have to grind, right? Because you were doing special team stuff. You're on the team doing special team stuff, playing not every down type thing, on the offense. So that must take another special level of like commitment too, right? Because you're not the guy. So you need to make yourself beneficial or at least useful to the team in those dirty, scrappy kind of ways. So talk to us about like that experience. Was that just something that was something that you were comfortable with? Did you have to get comfortable with it?
No, I definitely had to get comfortable with it because I wasn't playing special teams, but it depends on what you really want in your life. So if you think about if you're in sales and you want to be the head of sales one day, you have to make the initial calls. You got to dial day in and day out. So in terms of my football career, if I want to be in the NFL and I want to stay in the NFL, what do I need to do? So I had to do special teams, things that I've never done before, go out there and tackle people. I play offense, but I had to go out there and tackle people on special teams. So what's the ultimate goal? So yeah, it was a tough thing for me, but if you really put it into perspective, what did I really want to do? Do I want to be in the NFL or do I want to be the go-to guy? Because the go-to guys they had already picked and already selected. They are the top. They have the salary. So the NFL, the coaches let you know, if you want to make the team, you got this is the way to do it. Special teams. That's it. So if I think about my dad's career, my dad got to be one of the vice presidents of Ford. He had to start with being on the line and then being a plant manager and then being an area manager. Then he had to make some sacrifices and go overseas and do some work for Ford over there. And then for Jaguar and Land Rover. And then that led him to the vice president. He just didn't come out of Indiana and say, all right, this is what I do. I want to do. I want to be a C-suite at a Fortune 500 company. And that's the way I'm just going to go. No, you have to work your way up to things. So I've worked my way up to being starters on different teams, but it starts with special teams. It starts with doing the dirty work. And that's just kind of how life works. You don't just, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos didn't start these incredible careers and things like that. Just like, oh, yep, I got this idea. And then here we go. No,
right.
They had to do the dirty work. They had to do all the things. They had to make all the connections. They had to shake all the hands. Now they have the freedom that they want. So that's kind of how I had to do it.
Right. Do you think, I know you mentioned your dad there, and we talked about your upbringing, your parents earlier, and being from Detroit. And Detroit has obviously a reputation. Oh, I got a notification just pop up right in the middle of my screen while we're going. So Detroit obviously has a reputation of being a blue collar town. So that blue collar work ethic, was that something that was part of your upbringing or not so much?
Oh, absolutely. Seeing my parents go to work, seeing how hard they worked. You know, my dad, when he was a plant manager at Ford, would take my brother and I on Saturday mornings and just, you know, we'd ride through the plant with him to make sure everything was good. And we'd be falling asleep on the little cart that he was driving us around in. But, you know, the fact that he took us to work on a Saturday, it showed us the work ethic that you need to have. And then to see him grow as this incredible leader within a Fortune 500 company, that started back when, you know, we were younger.
Yeah.
So it was a journey. So yeah, that company, and my mom, you know, she left our corporate job to start her own practice in law. So, you know, I had that entrepreneurial mindset of my mom, but the work ethic of both of my parents has been incredibly beneficial for me and my siblings.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I just love that whole mindset, how you're able to kind of pull different things from different people and apply it to life in the NFL, because I feel like what people sometimes miss, and I've had a couple other NFL players on here, Reggie Walker, Christian Sicoli, a couple others. And I think like what people sometimes don't really realize is the fact that like, just because you're in the NFL doesn't mean that you're just like living the dream and, you know, it's all hunky dory and it's like, you know, you don't have to pay for anything and you're making so much money and you live this lavish lifestyle, but it's really like not that. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it just to try to get on the field, obviously. Right. I mean, we're talking to somebody like you that went through that, constantly going through that throughout your career.
Absolutely. I mean, I tell people all the time, is that, yes, I'm in the NFL, but I have to make the team every year. Like, I'm not Peyton. I'm not one of these. Yeah. I'm not Dell. I'm not Saquon. Like, those guys are guaranteed to make the team.
Right.
I have to go to training camp and make the team. I have to perform at my best for at least 45 days in a row to show that I deserve to be on this team.
Yeah.
Like, there are no mishaps. So, no, I mean, the lavish lifestyle of the NFL athlete or NFL athletes that people see and people think that goes on, that's only like the 1% of the NFL. The other 99%, none of it's guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But that's just, you know, the mindset that people have on. I mean, I just had an Olympian on, and she basically has to pay her way to the Olympic Games just because, you know, the country that she competes for and all that kind of stuff. It's crazy that, you know, the mindset that people have about professional athletes and what the real life actually is. So we'll keep going from where we are in this story. So you're with the Broncos, going through your career there. Broncos made the Super Bowl in 2016, Super Bowl 50. So take us through like what that season was like. Was there a point where, you know, as you're, you know, a part of this team and playing and doing all the stuff that you were doing, was there a point where like everybody on the team kind of knew that you had something special, that you could be able to get to that level and make it to a Super Bowl?
I'm sure other guys on the team knew that, older guys. It being my second year, I had no clue.
Yeah.
I was just trying not to mess anything up, and wherever Peyton told me to be, that's where I was going to be.
Yeah.
So I'm actually glad I didn't know, because the amount of pressure, I don't know what that would have felt like for me. Right. But I didn't have any pressure on me in terms of playing, because I I knew what was at stake in terms of like, yeah, okay, we're trying to go to the Super Bowl. Well, isn't every other team? I wasn't really thinking like, man, Peyton's on his last legs. Jamarcus Ware has never won a playoff game. TJ Ward's never won one. You got an incredible guy like Aqib Talib. You have all these players. Demaryius Thomas has been to a Super Bowl, but they got blown out. Emmanuel Sanders has been to a Super Bowl. He's won, and they didn't win. They lost to Green Bay. So they knew what was at stake. I didn't really know what was at stake. So I was really more focused on the process. But then we get to the Super Bowl 50, and we're up 12. We had just scored a touchdown. We're up 12 with a little less than 3 minutes to go in the game, maybe, and we're deciding to go. We decide to go for 2 to put the game completely out of reach. And Peyton calls the play, and we line up. And at this point in the game, I hadn't caught a pass. And we're lined up, and I'm looking at the ball. And I feel like the entire stadium could see my heart beating through my chest because he told me in the huddle, like, you know, I like the matchup that you have. We're going to get man-to-man. I'm throwing you the ball. So my eyes are completely wide open. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
I make the move towards the defender. I act like I'm going right. I break left, and I see the ball in the air, and it's like an infant baby is being thrown towards me, and I sure as hell better catch this.
Yeah.
And I catch it. I cradle it. I get up. I do my dance, and everything that was possible, all the possibilities in my life became a reality right then and there. And I ended up catching Peyton's last pass.
Which is crazy to think about, you know, one of the best to ever do it. And, you know, you catch that pass. So this is when I was preparing for this interview. So I you know, was looking on your Wikipedia. I looked at the highlight reels that you have on your YouTube page. I've listened to interviews that you've done on your podcast, which we'll get to, all those different things. And one of the things that I think is just so interesting, like I know enough about football that I think like I can talk to people that are also like somewhat knowledgeable. Like they understand like there's an offense and a defense and there's wide receivers in the different positions. I could play fantasy football and do that kind of stuff. When it gets down to like the nuances of the game, that's where cause I just hadn't played enough as a kid. Like baseball, different story. I can, you know, talk with anybody I feel like on that game, but football is a little bit different. So one of the things that I thought was interesting is that you are a second-year receiver. You have playing time, we'll just say spotty playing time at best. And now you're going for 2 in the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning and like this team. And you just laid out, you know, names of guys that anybody listening to the show probably knows. And they throw the ball to you. And I think that to me is just like takes everything that you just kind of have laid out to this point in your story and makes it like, yeah, like this is what happens when you put that time and effort in, because you don't know when that number is going to get called and you're going to have to like step up and make it happen. And I think to me, that was just something that I was like so eager to ask. It was like what that, you know, and you just talked about it, what that feeling was like that, you know, you're in the huddle, you're in the Super Bowl. He says that to you, your eyes basically become like flying saucers. And it's like another movie reference, little giants. Like you can't pitch to Johnny. Like I'm Johnny, you know, It's like something like that. I mean, I just think that is such like a crazy thing. But to me, that encapsulates who you are. Knowing what I know about you so far and what we're going to get into later in the episode is that like you have gone through this with that work ethic, knowing what you needed to do, what was expected of you and just doing your job. And then when you're actually ready to become the guy in that moment, you're ready. And I think that was just so cool. And I just needed to like talk about that for a second to just finally let that out. I've been building that up for days as I was doing my research. So I just needed to let that out for you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. When opportunity knocks, it's too late to prepare.
Absolutely. All right. So win the Super Bowl, you get a ring. Do you have the ring? Is it on you right now? Do you wear it?
No, never.
No. Is there like, do you ever like go to like a function and you're just like, I'm going to wear my Super Bowl ring? Nothing. You never wear it.
No, because then people want to take pictures and.
All right, that's fair.
I let my dad wear it and show it off.
There you go. Does he get questions like, "Oh my God, you were on a Super Bowl team"?
No, he tells him that his son was.
Got it. All right, all right. So you spend so that was your second year. You've been in the NFL for 7 years, right? I got that right at the outset. So one of the things that I also think is interesting is you know, being the guy that you are, and you say that you have to make the team every year and do all that kind of stuff. So you played with the Broncos, then you're with the Giants, most recently with the Saints. And at the outset, before we even started recording, we were talking about like you're in free agency right now and you're waiting for calls and all that. So what, to me, it might be a little bit different. Like if I'm on a team and I'm just like, I made the team, like that's one thing. And then I have to like find ways to get my playing time, get my catches, get my, all that kind of stuff. You're not on a team. So like, what is like this period of the off season like for you? Is it just like nerve wracking? Are you confident in yourself enough that you know like that call's coming? So what is this experience like?
I would say it's different now. Maybe when I first hit free agency, it was a little bit different because I didn't know anything about it. I know I'm towards the end of my career now, and I only want to play a couple more years. So right now, I'm just working on my other business ventures. I do executive and leadership coaching and leadership development for organizations. So, I'm kind of busy with that right now. I do know that that call is coming because my agent informs me that teams are interested in me and want to bring me in or might want to work me out. So I know that that's out there.
Yeah.
So right now, I know I can go out there and play and make a team, but I also know that I'm setting myself up for life after football. So that's what I just take this time to do right now. And it's something that I really enjoy doing.
Beautiful. Let's expand because that was a good segue. So let's expand on the stuff that you're doing now. Executive and leadership coaching. We talked about how we're going to get into like mindset type stuff. That's what your whole podcast is really kind of built on, is like mindset, mentality, that kind of stuff. Correct. So I think like this would be a good opportunity to kind of flesh some of that stuff out more. So take us through some of the stuff like why, at what point did you decide that you were going to go into something different, not go into something different, but start building this secondary business and start building up that, and why this?
Yeah, I would say that this started maybe 3 years ago. I was entering free agency for the first time, coming off my best year playing with the Broncos. So I'm getting ready to hit free agency. So right now it's time for me to get paid. So I joined Chicago. I'm now playing in Chicago. I'm now playing in the city that my mom is living in. My mom's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Soldier Field. So everything seems to be aligning. And I'm going through training camp and I'm playing some good ball. And we get to the end of training camp and I get a call from the general manager saying that they were going to release me. And I had never felt this feeling before.
Yeah.
And I was at home for the next 4 weeks. I was embarrassed. I was sad. My now fiance girlfriend at the time had just moved to Chicago and left her job for me. And now I don't have one. And that was a tough time for me. And that's where I had to do a lot of soul searching. But that's where I came up with the idea for Silver Spoon, my book, The Imperfect Guide to Success, to share people about the mindset that you have to become a professional athlete, or to do what my dad or my mother did, or to go through all the things that my brother did. And I dedicated the book to my brother for all the things that he went through in his life early on, just in terms of him wanting to be a professional basketball player. But where I had to pivot and understand that, what if the NFL doesn't come calling back? How am I going to make money? So I told myself that I wanted to speak and use my book and share the stories of my friends, and how it doesn't matter where you come from. We all have the same 24 hours, but you have to have certain principles and values within your life in order to be successful. All successful people have them.
Right.
And that's why I decided to write my book. And then a couple of years ago, I met a guy by the name of JP, and we went through an initial discovery session. I had no idea what coaching was. And he moved me to tears. He asked me who I was, and he moved me to tears because I couldn't answer the question. I was answering the question with accolades, and he was just asking me who I was and why I wanted what I wanted. And it was just like, then I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to work with people one-on-one and help people show that sometimes we're playing life not to win, or we're playing not to lose instead of playing life to win.
Right.
And at that point in my life, when I met JP, I wasn't playing life to win. I was playing not to lose. I was playing not to make any mistakes. And I feel like a lot of people, majority of people, are playing life not to lose. I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose, instead of like really going for it. And I think that's where coaching comes into play. And if I think about me getting to the pros, I've had trainers and coaches at every level to help me and guide me and push me to be better. So that's why I got into it.
Yeah. When you mentioned the not to lose and playing life to win, is that something where you're saying to yourself, like, I need to take risks, or maybe not just like blind risks, but calculated risks, like in, living your life to like its fullest potential? That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, really. Yeah, really to its fullest potential. Sometimes we set goals we know we can hit. Of course, I can get on the phone and make LinkedIn connections. I can make 5 a day. But what would it be like to make 20 a day?
Right.
What would that do for your business? What? Of course, I can work out, 1 day a week. But what would it be like to work out 3 days a week where I'm doing 2 days? How much better can I get then? It's not surface level.
Right.
Every time people set goals, they set goals. Oh yeah, I know I can get that. That's why people lose motivation. That's why New Year's resolutions only last 2 weeks. That's something you can do. What's something out of this world that you can do? And then let's work back from there. It's a place to come from, not to get to.
Right. So it's kind of touching back into the football side of it. So you have this conversation after you get cut by the Bears, and did that conversation that you had with this guy, JP, did that affect, I know it had an effect on your life and what you were going to do outside of football, but did it affect your football career as well?
Not that conversation with him. I think more of a conversation with my brother. My brother just said, you're in a dangerous position now in terms of, like, he was clapping. He was like, man, pat yourself on the back. Like, this is the lowest moment you'll have.
Yeah.
And now you can only be more dangerous. And a lot of times, we create suffering for ourselves when the possibilities were still unfolding. When I think about getting cut by Chicago, thinking about all the great things that happened this year, I got signed by Bill Belichick 4 weeks after. I got a chance to play with Tom Brady for a week. And that was incredible. And that got me back into the mindset I was playing with when I first came into the league, because I was playing with Peyton. So you knew my study habits got back together. My eating habits got back together. Sometimes life puts you on the sideline to give you a different perspective. And that's what happened. So Bill Belichick, they ended up trading for Josh Gordon, and I get signed by the Giants. And I played 2 years with the Giants, but I get a chance my fiance's from New Jersey. We get a chance for 2 years to be around her family, and they get to come to Giants games. And we ended up getting my baby boy, Simba, our dog, while we were in Jersey.
Yeah.
So sometimes we create so much suffering for ourselves as humans when the possibilities were still unfolding. Yeah, I should have went to Chicago in better shape and with a better mindset, but I didn't. But I think that week with Tom Brady and seeing that has transferred and changed things in my life dramatically.
Right. New Jersey is just a magical place. I mean, that's where I'm sitting right now. So, I get it. Okay. So one of the other things that I wanted to ask is, like, we're throwing around a lot of guys' names that have a lot of weight. And I know that some of the stuff that you've talked about before is that, like, being around some of those guys has helped you kind of see how different people operate. And I always think it's just so interesting to kind of see people that are, like, at the top of their field. Like, if you're at the top of, quarterbacks in the NFL, you just rattled off probably like 3 or 4 of them in, like, the history of the game. You mentioned, like, other people that you've played with, wide receivers like Emmanuel Sanders, like all these other people that are also close to the top of their field in their respective positions. So what are some things, maybe if there's like a particular guy or a particular story that you could share that would kind of, shed some light on, like, what's helped shape your mindset the most? Maybe not like a direct conversation like, you said you had with your brother and with the guy JP, but maybe just, like, I know you've talked about it a little bit, but kind of watching how they go about their business and how they carry themselves and how that's helped influence what you're trying to do outside of football.
Yeah, I would say Peyton, Eli, Tom, and Drew Brees. I think all of those guys, their preparation is unmatched. And if people could bring that level of preparation into their life, that life would be easy. I mean, you would still have to be able to adapt and things like that, but life would be so much different. You could get actually so much done if you're actually prepared. And those guys are so prepared, in terms of the way they come in. Their weeks look the same. They have a routine. They get things done. But it's all about preparation, and they all can adapt too. They're thinking about, all right, what can happen? All right, this is how I want the play to look, but what could mess this play up? And in life, you can do that. Okay, you have this ultimate business goal that you want, but what are the obstacles that can get in the way of me doing this? And then how can I counteract these things? So I think that's important. That's where I've taken away from all the quarterbacks that I've played with is the preparation to be great because they're, like you said, they're at the top of their game. So they're more focused than anybody because it's also a legacy thing for them too.
Right.
You know, they can't afford to just go out there and, oh, I had a bad game. You know, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
People talk about them.
Rats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's just interesting because I think like, with sports just in general, there's a lot of carryovers to actual life. So I was just curious if there was, a few things that you saw that you kind of picked up on. So so let's take it. You mentioned the book, right? And that's what kind of kicked off your life outside of football as far as like the business ventures, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then you go into the executive coaching, you have the podcast. So let's break it down to kind of like, what are the messages that you're trying to get across to people? I know we've touched on a lot of them, but let's start from there. And then we can kind of build off that as we go through this second half of this conversation, I guess. Are there like core principles, core values, core, beliefs in this system?
In my book or in the way I coach?
Let's do book first, and then we'll do coach, and then we'll see, go ahead.
Yeah, in my book, it's more about core principles that you need to succeed in terms of handling adversity, handling success, setting goals, surrounding yourself with the right people. I mean, these are things that everybody should know and everybody should just be reminded of. In terms of my coaching, it's about the ultimate vision for what you really want in your life. And why is that important to you? You know, a lot of people talk about connecting to the why, but how do you do that? How do you teach someone to connect to the why? That's important because, why do I want to do this? Because I want to do it for my mom. But why do you want to do that? And why do you want to do that? You got to come. I need 10 reasons why you want to do something. And then what do you really value? What do you value the most? And are you living within those values? And the same thing goes for a company. You know, what's your company mission and vision? And do your employees believe that? I'm able to go through, I wanted to run through a wall for Peyton and do anything for Peyton because of the way he worked. So are you as a CEO, are you as a leader, as an entrepreneur, if you're asking people to do things for you and they're not doing them for you the way you would like, are you representing the example that would make them want to do that? Are
Right.
you building enough of yourself? So I think a lot of that stuff is very important. And, sports, business, and life go hand in hand. I mean, especially football. This in terms of communication, the coaches that I've played for, in terms of going into a football locker room has changed every year. So you have to learn to communicate with people, different walks of life, and go out there and put it to the test on a Sunday.
Yep.
To try to win. So.
Right. Okay. So one of the things when I listen to people talk about, like having goals and values and all that kind of stuff, one of the things that I think that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle, and maybe, like one of the conversations you were referencing earlier was kind of your moment to realize like who you actually are. Because I think that like people like, there was a point in my life where I had goals of like what I thought were my actual goals. Like I needed to get to here, I needed to do this, and this is what's going to, make it all work for me. And I've posted 58, tomorrow 59 episodes of this show. And I've talked to a lot of people that have those same types of experiences. Like if I do XYZ, I will be happy. Then they do XYZ and they're just like, now what do I do? Because they weren't actually doing it for themselves. They were doing it for other people. So is part of what you're talking about, you need to understand like who you are in like your true self, your authentic self. So like, how do you kind of figure that out?
Yeah, I think there's certain ways. I mean, the best way I would tell people is to work with me. We can figure it out together. But
plug. Really, we love shameless plugs on the Morning Spotlight. So that was perfect. So great.
You definitely have to connect with your life's purpose. What do you if you had $100 million right now, what would you be doing in terms of giving back to other people? Because I don't think there's a problem with actually giving back to other people, serving other people. But if you're trying to impress other people, that's where people get into trouble. That's where I've gotten into trouble myself. What am I trying to impress somebody else for? They probably don't even care.
Yep.
So, and then,
or it's like, or in some cases, sorry, but it's like they care too much. So like they care so much that they're like, no, you shouldn't do that. You should do this. And because you know that they care, you're just like, oh, okay. And then you just kind of go and you do that. You go do that other thing that you're not really passionate about or you're not really into or whatever, right?
Yeah, or just ask them, why should I do that? You should ask that person why. They probably don't want you. They probably like you right where you are. That's why they want you to, oh, just stay right here. You don't need to do that, or you shouldn't do that.
Right.
They like you right where you are. So, I mean, you see that with a lot of friends in terms of, just as you grow apart from people, they want you to be right where you are. But, it really just depends on what you want for your life. What do you want for your business? What do you want for your family?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so, okay, so as you're kind of building all this, at what point did you start the podcast? Because I just told you I was listening to the podcast before we actually got on here. So it's called The Quiet Place, right?
The Quiet Time.
Quiet Time. God damn it. Sorry. So it's called The Quiet Time. Obviously, I'll cut that part out so I wasn't wrong. But it's called The Quiet Time. So what was the impetus behind the podcast? Like, why start that? Did it just help, amplify your message to more people?
I think I just started that just because it was during quarantine, and I like talking to people. I love sharing messages, and why not share some of the things that I've learned throughout these locker rooms that people can take away and apply it, that can apply to business, not just to athletes.
Right.
Mindset can apply to anybody and everybody. So that's why I did it. So I did it during the pandemic, right when the pandemic started. I think maybe like 2 months later I started it. So I started in April, and it's just something. It's something that's fun to do, and I enjoy sharing stories and laughing with people and talking.
Right. Yeah. So like I said, I was listening, and I was thinking of A Quiet Place with the John Krasinski movie where it's like the whole thing's quiet, and then I had quiet, and then anyway. So as you could tell, I watch some movies. But so it's a solo show, also interviews. So you do both, because I listened to a couple where it was just you, and a couple that was, I think the one that I was just listening to before we got on was with Alan Houston of the Knicks. So when you're doing those solo episodes, and this is just from like a podcaster, like from a podcaster's perspective, to me, it's hard to do a solo episode because like I feel like I need to talk to somebody else, because like when I talk to somebody else like you, I feel like I learned something, and I feel like I've gotten something out of this conversation so far. And that's with all my guests. It's something, whether it's educational or if it's inspiring or whatever. So, and I know that you do the coaching thing, so maybe it's kind of your way of showing how you actually communicate on your own. But which one do you like better? Which one is easier for you, the interview or the solo?
I would say they're both the same. I mean,
Yeah.
It's here, in terms of schedule, just to do it by myself, because I can just, hit record and then go from there. But no, I think, I don't really do a script when I do my podcast. I just, if I'm listening attentively, then it's easier just to have a organic conversation. But no, I like both.
Okay. So sorry. Geez. So with the guests, okay. And this is always something that I try to think about. Like, if there was a guest that had a profound impact on you, that you had them on the show, you go through that episode, and your episodes are normally like a half hour, right? About a half hour.
20, 30 minutes.
Yeah. So someone that you were going to have on the show, you have them on the show, and you leave that 20-minute, half hour episode being like, whoa, that was something I did not expect. That was awesome for whatever reason. Was there like a moment on the podcast that you had that like, wow moment?
I feel like I've had that with a lot of different guests. I just think they're all unique, and then some of their stories are just all incredible in terms of things that they've had to fight through or just their turning point.
Right. Yeah. Give us one. Give us like a little tease of one of the stories that you gone through with one of your guests, so that like now people can go listen to A Quiet Time.
Yeah, I would say Johnny Serpilla. That's one name that comes to mind. He's on a couple different boards, and he was the CEO of Camping World, that incredible, company. But he has some incredible stories just about his kids.
Right.
And I think that's a great episode for people to listen to and really get a perspective on just, people's turning point.
Got it. Awesome. All right. So one of the things that I also like to talk to people about are goals. And obviously you are a guy that has goals and you encourage other people to have goals and all that kind of stuff. So what are some things looking forward for the next year, next couple of years that you're hoping to accomplish within football maybe, but I'm more interested to know outside of football what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, in terms of football, it would be to get to 10 years. So that's 3 more seasons. And the pensions are different when you get to 10 seasons in the NFL. That would be an NFL goal. For my personal life, it would be to be a great husband, when I do get married to my fiance, when we have our wedding, to be an awesome dad when we have kids, to be an awesome son and brother and friend to my friends, and for my business, it to be the Fresh Prince of coaching. That's kind of how I see it. The Fresh Prince of coaching, in terms of, my coaching is unique. It's impactful, but it's loose but heavy at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I see it. I see myself speaking on stage, having 10 one-on-one clients, doing some corporate work. And that's where I see myself in the next couple of years in terms of my coaching.
Right. Is there anything else outside of like the coaching side of it and the NFL thing, like maybe something new that you're kind of like toying with the idea of getting yourself involved in, or are you really focused on what you're doing right now that you're just like, those things can wait?
I can see myself getting in radio or broadcasting.
Okay.
Just sharing my viewpoint of the game and doing that. So I've reached out to a couple of people out here in Denver where I live in the off season, and maybe that might be something that I do in the future.
I mean, I think you got a good relaxing voice. I feel calm, it's a little less abrasive than maybe my style, I guess, but that's just me. I mean, like I'm a Jersey guy and I just do it my own way, but yeah, what about the show? Is there anything else that we could expect from the show, or just more of what you've been doing? Is that something you want to do long term? I know you said broadcasting, but I mean, I started my show in quarantine also. And I feel like I could do this for forever because I just love it. Is that something else that you feel with your podcast?
Absolutely. Just the more people I meet, the more stories I hear. Like, hey, I mean, I've so many guests lined up. It's just, a matter of doing it. But
Right.
People have so many unique stories that they can share with people. So that's definitely something I want to do.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I just think it's such a great way to connect, yourself with other people. And then, have people share their stories and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So we're getting close to the end of the episode. So let's move this show into the closing segment, which we call Under the Spotlight. So the Spotlighters, which is what I call the Morning Spotlight listeners, have listened to Mike Hamm and Bennie Fowler talk for the last 45 minutes. So we've touched on your career. We touched on mindset. We've touched on, your life outside of football, all these different kinds of things. So if there's one thing that you want the Spotlighters to walk away from this episode with, what is that one thing?
The biggest room in the world is room for improvement. That's one thing that I always tell people. That's always one thing that I will leave people with, is the biggest room in the world is room for improvement. We can always improve in some aspect of our life. And if we have that approach, that canny approach, constant and never ending improvement, I mean, we're always going to be getting better. And that's what life is all about, is, getting better. You don't want to stay stagnant.
I love that. You know what? Like, so I've mentioned this on a couple other episodes. The under the spotlight part of these episodes, like sometimes the stuff that I get is they're like so good. Like the biggest room in the world is room for improvement. Like I need to make a compilation of all like the bangers that I get in under the spotlight, because that one fits right in with all the other ones. So I think that's awesome. And I think that just kind of rounds out this episode perfect. So for the people listening, where are places that they can get more Bennie? If they need more Bennie, where can they get it?
They can definitely get it on LinkedIn. They can just add me on LinkedIn, make a connection with me on LinkedIn, and that's the best way to communicate and contact me, and then we can just go from there.
Awesome. And then I'll make sure I put that, link in the show notes along with the podcast link. Also, I'll put that in the show notes as well. So for everybody listening, I am also going to put all of my contact information, just like always, in the show notes. themorningspotlight.com is the best place to go and reach me. Bennie, thank you again for coming on. This was great. Loved having you on, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
Michael, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course. And Spotlighters, thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.